Johnny Cash, the Man in Black, a legend whose voice and presence echoed through generations. But what if behind the music, fame, and iconic performances, there was a darker story, a plot to end his life? Today, 40 years later, Cash's family has finally chosen to break their silence on this chilling chapter, revealing secrets that have been buried for decades. Why did they stay quiet all these years? And who could possibly have had motives to kill Johnny Cash? At the height of his career, Johnny wasn't just a beloved musician. He was also a man surrounded by controversy, struggles, and an unpredictable lifestyle that kept people guessing. His rebellious spirit made him a hero to millions, but it also earned him powerful enemies. Some saw him as a threat. Others resented his outspoken nature. But few could have imagined that someone would go so far as to plot against his life. In this video, we'll dive into the details surrounding this shocking plot, the reasons behind the family's silence, and why now, after 40 years, they've chosen to share their story. As we uncover the truth, you'll see a side of Johnny Cash that few ever knew. A man who, even at his peak, faced dangers far greater than anyone realized. So let's journey into the hidden world of Johnny Cash, where fame and darkness collided in ways you won't believe. Johnny Cash's journey to fame wasn't just the story of a talented musician. It was a journey marked by hardship, resilience, and an early life that would shape him into one of the most complex figures in music history. Born in 1932 in Kingsland, Arkansas, Johnny grew up during the Great Depression, a time of severe poverty and struggle. His family, like many others, relied on farm work, and young Johnny spent his childhood picking cotton and helping with chores. The weight of poverty left a deep mark on him, and it's often said that these early experiences shaped his empathy for the downtrodden and his lifelong connection to the working class. From a young age, Johnny was drawn to music, finding solace in the hymns and folk songs his mother would sing. But tragedy struck when Johnny was only 12. His older brother Jack, whom he idolized, was killed in a tragic accident at the sawmill where he worked. The loss devastated Johnny, leaving him with a lingering sense of guilt and a profound awareness of life's fragility, feelings that would later seep into his music. This darkness, combined with his deep faith, created a complexity in him that set the tone for the songs he would write and sing for the rest of his life. In his early 20s, Johnny enlisted in the U.S. Air Force, which stationed him in Germany. It was there, in the small hours between shifts, that Johnny wrote his first songs and dreamed of a life in music. After his discharge, he moved to Memphis, Tennessee, a decision that would change the course of his life forever. Armed with little more than his guitar and a handful of songs, Johnny began knocking on doors, hoping someone would take a chance on him. That chance came when he walked into Sun Records, the same label that had launched Elvis Presley. Johnny's distinct, gravelly voice and raw emotion captured the attention of producer Sam Phillips, who signed him on the spot. His first single, Cry, 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 quickly gained traction, but it was his second release, Folsom Prison Blues, that became his first big hit. The haunting lyrics and Johnny's unmistakable voice struck a chord with listeners, and his career began to skyrocket. As his fame grew, so did his audience's fascination with him. Johnny was different from other stars of the time. He didn't conform to the polished, wholesome image that many artists portrayed. Instead, he embraced his imperfections, performing in all black and singing about the struggles and stories of people often overlooked. His songs were about heartbreak, prison, regret, and redemption. This raw honesty endeared him to audiences and earned him a reputation as the Man in Black. But with fame came darker aspects. Johnny's life was increasingly marred by substance abuse, brushes with the law, and a reputation for being unpredictable. His intense personality, both on stage and off, attracted both admirers and critics. He was magnetic, a man who embodied both light and darkness, drawing in fans who sensed his struggles and identified with his pain. Though adored by millions, his rebellious lifestyle and confrontational nature also invited enemies. He was a man who didn't shy away from controversy, whose music and image made powerful statements, and for some, those statements were a little too powerful. The seeds of tension were planted, setting the stage for a life where the shadows behind his fame grew longer. As Johnny Cash became a household name, he was also unknowingly drawing closer to the kinds of threats that few celebrities ever have to face. Johnny Cash's rise to fame wasn't without its fair share of turbulence. Known as the Man in Black, Cash crafted a public persona that was unapologetically raw and unrefined, embodying rebellion and defiance in an era that favored clean-cut stars. His music, while celebrated for its grit and honesty, also reflected a darker, more troubled side that fascinated the public, but drew concern and sometimes disdain from others. With songs about prison life, hardship, and addiction, Johnny didn't just break the mold of the typical country star, he shattered it. One of the most defining elements of Cash's early career was his struggle with addiction. During the 1960s, at the peak of his fame, he began abusing amphetamines and barbiturates, substances he relied on to keep up with grueling tour schedules and the demands of his career. Over time, these habits grew, taking a toll on his physical and mental health and leading to erratic behavior that concerned those closest to him. Cash's drug use resulted in a number of public incidents, including a few brushes with the law. His arrest for minor offenses, like trespassing and drug possession, made headlines and added to his reputation as a bad boy of country music. In 1965, one incident nearly derailed his career entirely. While camping in California's Los Padres National Forest, Johnny accidentally set a fire that destroyed over 500 acres of forest land, killing dozens of endangered condors. The government sued him, and Cash reportedly showed little remorse, famously stating, "I don't care about your damn yellow buzzards." This incident only solidified his image as a reckless, uncontrollable figure in the public eye. But while his fans embraced his rebelliousness, others viewed him as a dangerous influence, a man spiraling out of control. Beyond his legal troubles and addiction, Johnny Cash's outspoken nature and willingness to confront controversial topics earned him powerful critics. He was unafraid to voice his views on social justice and prison reform, using his platform to speak out for those often overlooked by society. His performances at Folsom and San Quentin prisons were groundbreaking, drawing attention to the humanity of incarcerated individuals. While these performances endeared him to fans and prison reform advocates, they also stirred discomfort among more conservative audiences who didn't approve of his empathy for prisoners. Johnny's unapologetic approach to life and music made him both revered and reviled. He was a figure people couldn't ignore, and he drew attention, whether positive or negative, everywhere he went. His fierce independence, however, wasn't without consequence. As Cash's life grew increasingly complex and controversial, he became a target for criticism, judgment, and potentially something far more sinister. While fans loved him for his authenticity, others saw him as a threat, someone who needed to be controlled or, in the worst case, eliminated. The stage was set for the plot that would eventually shake his family and cast a dark shadow over his legacy. In the midst of Johnny Cash's whirlwind life of fame, addiction, and controversy, there was a threat lurking that few people knew about, a plot to end his life. This wasn't just a story of celebrity gossip. It was a chilling revelation that added another layer to Cash's already complex life. The story of this sinister plot has remained in the shadows for decades, with only those closest to Cash aware of the details. Now, 40 years later, his family has finally begun to share what they know, shedding light on a dark chapter in Johnny's life that could have taken everything from him. While Johnny had made enemies over the years, from his confrontational stances on social issues to his rebellious antics in the public eye, few realized just how serious some of these threats were. The person or people behind the plot remain largely unknown, their identities shrouded in mystery. What is clear, however, is that Cash's outspoken nature and the powerful statements he made in his music and public appearances had stirred up animosity in certain circles. For some, Johnny was more than just a musician. He was a symbol of defiance and resistance, and for those threatened by that image, he was a danger. The alleged plot began to take shape at a time when Johnny was at his most vulnerable. His addiction struggles had intensified, and his behavior had become increasingly unpredictable, leaving him open to enemies he might not have otherwise noticed. It's said that Johnny received a number of anonymous threats during this time, though he brushed many of them off. But one threat, in particular, stood out, coming with enough specificity and detail to alarm both Cash and those closest to him. His family, concerned for his safety, urged him to take it seriously. But Johnny, known for his tough exterior and refusal to be intimidated, initially resisted, unwilling to let fear dictate his actions. The threat reportedly involved detailed plans to harm him while on tour, with whispers of an ambush that could have taken place at one of his shows. The idea of someone targeting him on stage, in front of his fans, sent chills through his family, who knew how easily his public persona could make him a target. Yet Johnny refused to back down. His response was to carry on as he always had, performing and living his life without succumbing to fear. In the end, whether due to heightened security or pure luck, the plot never came to fruition. But the threat left a lasting impression on Johnny's family, who saw how easily his life could have been cut short. For them, the fear lingered long after the danger had passed, a constant reminder of the price Johnny paid for his fame and convictions. Now, decades later, his family is finally speaking out, recounting the close call that nearly changed everything and revealing the side of Cash that few saw, a man fearless in the face of danger, even when the stakes were life and death. For years, Johnny Cash's family kept the chilling story of the plot against him under wraps. They chose silence, guarding the details of this threat with a fierce loyalty to the man they knew and loved. To the public, Cash was a symbol of rebellion, a man who wore his flaws openly and fiercely. But to his family, he was simply Johnny, a husband, a father, a man with a heart full of empathy and a deep sense of duty to those he loved. So, why did they stay silent for so long? The answer lies in both respect for Johnny's legacy and the complexity of his life. From the outside, Johnny Cash was the ultimate man in black, an untouchable legend who seemed impervious to danger. His family, however, knew just how vulnerable he could be, especially during his most tumultuous years. Speaking publicly about the threat against him would have meant revisiting some of the darkest times in his life, and the Cash family wanted to protect his memory. Revealing the plot too soon could have overshadowed his accomplishments, focusing attention on a scandal instead of his enduring music and message. Another reason for their silence was Johnny's own attitude toward the threat. He wasn't a man to be easily intimidated, and he dismissed the idea of letting anyone else dictate his actions. The family's decision to keep the story private was, in many ways, a tribute to Johnny's spirit. He had always faced life on his own terms, and he preferred not to dwell on the darker aspects of fame. For Johnny, fear wasn't an option. He continued performing, advocating for causes he believed in, and embracing his role as a voice for the voiceless, regardless of the risks involved. For his family, the silence also served as a way to honor his strength. They believed that sharing the story too soon would have gone against his wishes and his image as a man who never backed down. It wasn't about hiding the truth. It was about preserving his legacy as he would have wanted it remembered. Only now, decades later, do they feel it's the right time to speak out, sharing this part of his life to reveal the resilience and courage that defined him. The family's decision to break their silence after 40 years is also a reflection of how time has changed the narrative. Today, Johnny Cash's place in history is well established. His legacy is secure, his contributions to music and culture celebrated. Sharing this story now doesn't threaten his image. Instead, it adds a layer of depth, showing fans a man who faced unimaginable risks without losing his integrity. In many ways, their silence was an act of love, protecting his memory until the world was ready to understand the full measure of Johnny Cash. Not just as a star, but as a man who stood tall in the face of darkness. After decades of silence, Johnny Cash's family has finally decided to open up about the shadow that loomed over his life. The decision to speak out now comes not only from a place of healing, but also from a desire to honor the courage and resilience that Johnny displayed in the face of danger. What the family has revealed sheds light on a side of Cash that few knew, a man who faced more than just internal demons and the pressures of fame, but also a very real external threat against his life. According to his family, the plot wasn't just a vague threat. It was specific, calculated, and personal. In interviews and statements, they've shared that Johnny had received multiple anonymous threats over the years, often disregarding them as part of the territory that came with his fame and outspoken nature. But one particular threat was different, carrying enough detail and seriousness that it shook even Johnny. The family recalls that this threat involved a detailed plan to harm him, with certain individuals allegedly involved in planning an attack at one of his concerts. For a man who spent so much of his life on stage, the idea of being vulnerable in front of his fans was terrifying. Not for himself, but because he knew others could get hurt if things escalated. The family has also shared that Johnny's response to this threat showed his unshakable resolve. Even though they urged him to take additional security measures, Johnny was adamant about not letting fear control him. He insisted on continuing his shows, telling his family that he wasn't about to live his life in hiding. His daughter, Rosanne Cash, has spoken about her father's commitment to his fans and his work, noting how he felt that his duty to his audience outweighed his own safety concerns. Johnny refused to give in to fear, choosing instead to confront the danger head-on, as he had with so many other challenges in his life. The family's revelations also include details about the toll this threat took on Johnny's loved ones. They recall the sleepless nights, the anxiety, and the ever-present fear that something could happen at any time. For his wife, June Carter Cash, the threat was a reminder of how fragile life was, even for a figure as seemingly invincible as Johnny. But like Johnny, June stood by his side, supporting him in his decision to carry on despite the risks. These new details from his family don't just add to Johnny Cash's legend, they humanize him. They reveal a man who, despite his fame, faced the same vulnerabilities as anyone else, yet continued forward with courage and determination. For fans, these revelations offer a powerful reminder of Johnny's strength, a legacy that lives on not only through his music, but through the resilience he showed in facing life's darkest moments. The recent revelations from Johnny Cash's family about the threats on his life have added an unexpected chapter to his legacy. Known worldwide as the Man in Black, Cash's life was already a mix of fame, struggle, and resilience. But learning that he faced a very real, life-threatening danger while he continued to perform and stand up for what he believed in only deepens the respect fans and peers alike have for him. This revelation doesn't just highlight Johnny's bravery. It redefines him as a man who lived by his principles, even when it meant facing profound personal risk. Cash's legacy was always about more than just his music. He was a man who embraced his imperfections and wasn't afraid to sing about topics others avoided. From prison reform to addiction and redemption, Johnny used his platform to advocate for those who were often forgotten. With this new information, we see that his commitment wasn't just performative. It was something he lived, breathing life into his songs with every experience. By refusing to let threats dictate his choices, he proved that his devotion to his message and his audience was unwavering. For Johnny's fans, these new details amplify their admiration. Cash had a reputation for being fearless, but knowing he performed while aware of potential harm reinforces just how much he valued connecting with people through his music. It wasn't about ego or fame. It was about reaching those who needed his words. This revelation cements him as a figure who, even under pressure, chose to be there for his fans, showing strength that few could match. In a way, this story also highlights the loyalty of those who stood by him. His family, aware of the dangers he faced, supported his choice to keep performing, despite their own fears. June Carter Cash, his wife and greatest advocate, was there beside him, sharing in the risk. The courage of those closest to him reflects the trust and unity within his family, a bond that was strong enough to endure the challenges they faced together. Today, as we look back on Johnny Cash's life, this story adds a new dimension to his influence. Cash was more than just a musician. He was a force of nature, a man unafraid to confront life's hardest truths and darkest moments. His decision to continue performing, despite threats, reveals a heroism that transcends music. It reminds us that Johnny Cash's story isn't simply one of fame or struggle, but of profound resilience and integrity. This legacy is more relevant than ever. Cash's life, now with this added chapter, serves as an inspiration to stand up for what one believes in, regardless of the risks. In the end, Johnny Cash's legacy is that of a man who lived fully, loved deeply, and, even in the face of danger, never backed down from being true to himself. Johnny Cash's life was one of remarkable courage, resilience, and authenticity. With the recent revelations about the threats against him, his legacy grows even deeper, reminding us that he was not only a groundbreaking musician, but a man unafraid to face life's darkest challenges. Cash didn't let fear dictate his actions. Instead, he stayed true to his art, his beliefs, and his connection with fans, no matter the risks. This revelation highlights the strength and conviction that defined Cash's life. He was a man who lived his truth, standing up for those who didn't have a voice and confronting issues few others would touch. His willingness to perform, even in the face of potential danger, speaks volumes about his dedication, not just to his music, but to the people who found comfort and inspiration in it. Johnny Cash's legacy is more than just his songs. It's a testament to bravery, integrity, and the power of staying true to one's values. As we remember him, we're reminded that Cash's story wasn't just about fame. It was about facing down fear, embracing one's flaws, and leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire.